Welcome to today's webinar, where the topic is Achieving More with Business Architecture and Lean Portfolio Management. My name is Doug Welsby, and I'm the Partner Channel Manager here at Wicrosoft. I'm also joined by my colleague Jose Levy, our Practice Director of Azure Cloud Services and Agile BPM, and our special guests from Fios, Vernon Smith, the Founder and Chief Strategy Officer, and Chris Jackson, an Agile Coach. Fios Insight provides a leading business architecture, portfolio rationalization, and enterprise architecture SaaS solution, which we'll be hearing more about today. During today's webinar, attendees will be on mute and the line will not be open for questions. However, feel free to use the GoToWebinar question feature to submit questions. I'll address these during the webinar and will respond via email if we do not get to your specific question. If for some reason you get distracted or pulled away during the webinar, no need to worry, as I will be emailing a link to the presentation once it's been posted to our YouTube channel. I'll now turn the presentation over to Jose.
Thanks, Doug, and thanks everyone for joining us for this month's webinar on lean portfolio management and business architecture. We have a lot to cover today, so I'm just going to get right down to it. What we want to do is basically show the underpinnings of lean portfolio management from a business architecture prism, and there's a couple of very strong points of connection that we want to demonstrate and talk about. We will then show a case study and talk about the benefits of business architecture. We'll be doing a very quick overview of solutions that are available to operationalize business architecture and lean portfolio management, and then we will do a summary and wrap up. So for our first topic is really connecting business architecture and lean portfolio management. I'm just going to talk about some of the themes and domain elements that allow for this connection. So on the very top, we have the lean portfolio management. We've seen this before. It's within, say, 5.0, Scaled Agile Framework 5.0 for lean enterprises. The important ones that I want to highlight, and we will be addressing, are, how do we get to these strategic themes? And what are some of the underpinnings that can allow us to get to this quicker in order to implement lean portfolio management within an organization? We end up with, a portfolio backlog, and really a portfolio backlog of funding value streams, and that's another of the core elements that we're going to be addressing. What we're trying to do is really connect the strategy and execution. So execution that's occurring from our teams that are developing, delivering value through the products that are within the value streams. So that's done through epics that are defined at the lean portfolio level. So all of this, as you can see, is actually supported by domains that are already within the organization. We're talking about enterprise architecture, business architecture. That's really directly related to enterprise agile and the Scaled Agile Framework, and also in the context of value streams into the DevOps, which is very important connection and component of the Scaled Agile Framework. So from here, what I want to do is make a explicit connection between business architecture as foundation for lean portfolio management. So the items in blue are core components of business architecture. The other items are within enterprise architecture. But what we're going to show is how, if you have a strong foundation within business architecture, you're actually going to have an easier time of implementing lean portfolio management, specifically at the portfolio level, which is really what we want to focus on. So one underpinning is the strategy component within lean portfolio management, and I have here highlighted some of the elements that already might be within your organization's mission, vision, core values. You can see business drivers, goals. All of those will need for us to develop our strategic themes, our portfolio budgets, and our portfolio context. But in reality, all these probably already exist, and if you were to formalize them within business architecture, it would be much easier for you to get to them. So on the right here, I'm actually showing, elements that you could be managing by having defined a more formal business architecture. It is really the first element in defining or aligning strategy to execution. So again, this is the kind of the first step in trying to get to the elements for lean portfolio management. The second element of this is really the strategy and investment funding, which is a core element of lean portfolio management. And you can see that the stakeholders shown there are core participants in the definition of the business architecture and the strategy models. We have your executive teams, the business owners, and enterprise architects, which would include business architects. You can see that all of the elements that are discussed at this level of strategy involve defining and connecting the portfolio, the enterprise strategy, the more important one, funding the value stream. So we're funding value streams and not projects, and really establishing portfolio flow. So we want to avoid getting away from the traditional stage gating and moving more towards the flow of value within our value streams. In order to getting down to the operational level, really agile portfolio operations within lean portfolio management is dependent on having a very clear definition of our operational value streams. And unfortunately, it's a topic within lean portfolio management that isn't addressed heavily. In other words, we organize development around that development value stream, but in order to actually do that, you have to have very clear definition of your operational value stream, and that's one of the connections that we are trying to make here with this content. So just as a starting element, I'll introduce the operational value stream, and which represents how the organization delivers value to stakeholders. We all know that. The example that's used within Scaled Agile Framework formal training is the consumer bank loans value stream, and that's the one that we're going to be used here as an example. Now, this is a business architecture element that is then purposed for defining our development value stream. In this case, again, this is straight out of say 5.0 Scaled Agile Framework. What we do is we're actually defining the systems and enable and support the operational value stream. And this is also an element that's within business architecture and enterprise architecture. So it should not be foreign if you are starting your journey with a business architecture foundation. You can see here that all of the different elements of the operational value stream have systems that support it: channels, loan origination system, credit scoring system, and core banking. Part of defining effective lean portfolio management involves having ARTs defined that in order to do program management. Now, these teams are the ones that support these individual systems, and again, don't want to get too deep into how we actually go doing this, but at the end of the day, the agile release trains that are going to deliver value to our operational value streams are the subsets of these solution sets that are represented by our development value stream. So, in the end, what we want to get to is, in order to deliver value through our value streams, is what are the arts that are within the value stream. So in this case, we've gone all the way and explicitly stated the ones for all of these different teams. Again, we started with a operational value stream. We then defined our development value stream, and within it, the agile release trains that comprise it. So we've gotten now to the level of actually operationalizing lean portfolio management. So this is actually a topic that's been defined previously, and I just want to highlight it because the Business Architecture Guild actually wrote a white paper in 2017 where the connection between business architecture and the Scaled Agile Framework was made, and value stream and capability terms were defined within it. So we're going now to take a step back and look at the value stream concept from a business architecture standpoint for lean portfolio management. But I just wanted to highlight that, you know, this is ground that's already been covered, and you know, this white paper is available in order for you to make it part of your lean portfolio management journey. And then finally, I want to talk about the collaborations, because this is how we actually make lean portfolio management happen. There's the strategy and investment funding that I addressed earlier, and how the key stakeholders connect strategy to investment funding in order to fund our value streams. And I talked about agile portfolio operations and how the development value stream is really comes out of our operational value stream, and from there we get to our agile release trains that are delivering value to customers through, you know, epics and features that we're developing. You can see here in lean governance also, the enterprise architect and business architect actually participate in all of these. So that's another key input in order to make happen lean portfolio management within your organization. So it's an easy starting point in your lean portfolio management journey to really lean on your business architect and enterprise architect. Okay, so I'm going to now turn it over to our partner, Fios Insight, who is going to go into a deeper dive into business architecture value streams.
Thanks, Jose. Hello, everybody. My name is Vernon Smith from Fios Insight. It's not going to be a heavy sort of tooling session this at all. We're just going to show you how we can use business architecture value streams, or business architecture to define value streams, and then those value streams to drive lean portfolio management. We're going to be talking a bit about business architecture today, but I don't want you to be put off by thinking we have to do a major business architecture exercise before starting down the LPM track. Some organizations are fairly well advanced in their business architecture already. Many other organizations say, what's business architecture? Is it process modeling? No, it's not, but we get asked that quite a lot. And so I want to give a little bit of a context of it, but I just don't want you thinking you have to do all of these things before you can start seeing any value in LPM. In most cases, it's a very iterative process. You can do a little tiny bit of business architecture, build out just what you need to develop one good or a couple of good value streams, push them down the pipe in the way that we're going to show today. And then when you come back to doing that next time round, when you look at your next set of release trains, you look at your next operational value stream, you're building on a sort of emerging business architecture, and you're building up that content. So yes, we'd like everybody on the call to end up with a great rounded enterprise level business architecture, but you don't need one to get started. So this diagram that you can see on the slide here, this is from a publication called the BizBook, which is basically the foundation, the Bible, if you like, for business architecture. The BizBook defines two levels of major business architecture concepts. There's a lot of other things around it as well, but this is an example shown in our tool. And the yellow circle in the middle, those are the core concepts. I just want to talk a little bit about each of those. So if we could just click forward, please. First thing, and the second thing apparently, first thing is the capabilities. Capabilities are about what a business does or what they aspire to do. It's not about the execution of those things. It's so a capability view of an organization, once it's defined, tends to be pretty stable unless you go through a major M&A or you go through a major divestment or the industry you're in fundamentally changes. So the capabilities, this is how you ultimately end up with a sort of business on a page model. A lot of folks will start here. There's some great materials available from the Business Architecture Guild and from industry as sort of reference models to get you started. But capability is what the business does. Next one, please. Organization. This is about the elements that make up a business. I'll show you an example of that quickly in the tool in a minute. Third area is information. We're not really going to talk about that much today, but that's the concepts and the terms. It's really the common language. It's the lingua franca that the business uses. You can then use that to drive down into logical and conceptual data modeling, into business rules and data rules, all those sort of good things, but that's a topic for another day if people want to talk about that. And then finally in the core is value streams. So big drum roll and ta-da, value streams. That is what we're going to talk about today. This is all about, as it says on the slide, the high-level flows of value into, within and across and out of the business. Think of it as very high-level processes. I know somebody on the call is going to shoot me for that afterwards, and I apologize up front, but for most people, thinking of it as a high-level view of a process that doesn't have any decisions and represents a simple flow from a trigger to an outcome, that's a good way to think about it. It chevrons across a page. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, we've got a little bit of broken animation. All right, just leave it that, that's fine. Basically, what this slide, again, we're not going to talk in too much detail about this. As Jose said at the beginning, the blue ovals here represent business architecture concepts. It's not an exhaustive list. Again, it's just some things, but this is just showing how it all fits together. And this specifically is a concept known as business outcome driven enterprise architecture. So we're bringing a lot of elements of the business modeling, business planning together with information and technologies and applications to produce operating models and roadmaps. And it just gives you a little bit more context. But to call out the value stream again, that's where it sits. It's part of it interacts with the stakeholder value networks. You tend to get to them starting from business models is a good way to think about it. Generally, when you're looking at understanding a business model canvas is a good start point. So that's what we're going to have a look at first in the tool. And I think that's over to me now for presenting, isn't it? So I'm just going to take control of this, and hopefully you should all be now seeing my screen. Okay, I can only assume that you're seeing my screen because I can't see if you can see my screen. So let's.
Good, yes, thank you, Vernon.
Excellent, thank you. Right, so this is our business architecture, enterprise architecture tool called Fios Insight. Insight EA is the tool, company is Fios Insight. It's a SaaS-based tool. This is not a plug for it, so I'm going to stop talking about it now and just show you some things in it. We have a business domain over here, which has a lot of content to it. We're going to look at a few of these things today. We'll look at initiatives, we'll look at capabilities, we'll look at strategy elements, not worried about information. We are going to have a quick look at systems because there were some systems that were in the Agile release trains that Jose was showing, and I'm going to show how we sort of get those into the value streams. And then there's some other domains that are not relevant for today. So we'll start with looking at a business model canvas, a business model which is built on a business model canvas. So this is a flexible model. You can drop a number of different areas onto here. We can basically, all of these boxes represent objects in our repository, and we can click on these things. We can see what else they're related to. Very quick, very easy model to build up, and it gives you that sort of simple view of who are the other parties involved that we talk with, what do they do with us, what are the main activities that we're undertaking. And typically you'd produce more than one of these for an organization. It would be for a particular major initiative or for a particular point of view, but I just wanted to show you that's a sort of a general start point. Then going on from the business model, we've got a number of strategy tools. Again, I'm not going to go into them in detail, but I'll just show you the sort of things we can gather in here. And again, thinking about what Jose was saying, you need a catalog of goals, you need some measures, you need some objectives. I've just put a couple of things in here for demonstration. We've got a goal of 20% year-on-year growth. We've got an objective of increasing retail loaned revenue. These are the sort of things that the operational value stream we were looking at about creating a loan and selling a loan to a client, ultimately fulfilling that loan. They're the sort of things that will interact with. So if I show you those in a model, this is a thing called a strategy capability network model. And I'll just zoom that in a bit so it's easier to see. What this does is it lets you see what are the strategy elements. So we've got, again, that objective of increasing retail loans revenue and our goal of 20% year-on-year growth, and then which initiatives. And in this case, because the initiatives we want to deliver this are going to be the Agile release trains, I've put the arts on here and it shows which of these strategy elements are delivered by each art, and then they're cross-referenced to the business capabilities that they will affect. And I've had this vetted by a very senior business architect in the banking world, so I know that this is accurate. Now, if I just pop into here and I will create what we call a quick heat map. What we can do here, because all this stuff is linked in the repository underneath, we can use data to drive how this model appears. So if I say, I've got some capability maturity set on the data underneath this, and I just want these to be the colors that show. I'll apply that, and now my model will become a heat map, and I can say color the whole objects in. So I can see that these capabilities that are green are marked as defined. They're reasonably mature. Digital channel management is managed. It's a lower level of maturity. Account servicing management and external channel management are really at a low level of maturity. That may influence your decision of prioritizing arts and prioritizing which initiatives you should undertake first. It may not, but it's useful to have that view. And you can look at that from a number of different points of view. That's just one of them. Okay, so we have a number of other strategy tools. Again, I won't go into them in detail now, but we can do things like adding value statements to these individual initiatives and seeing how much value do you think you will achieve by executing this one and then that one and then the other, and weighting those values. You can tie it right back to the interviews that gave you the information in the first place. That's a really powerful thing, is to be able to have that traceability right back to why are you doing this project at this time using these resources? Well, because these 5 people said it at this point and they related it to these other things that they think are of value. So all of that, you can do all of that sort of cross-referencing in here. And on any of these models, anything that we're looking at, this little eye, if I click on that, it will show me up here what all other things that are, sorry, that was very Texan of me, I apologize. What are the things that are related to the channel art? So it supports 5 business capabilities, of which 3 are shown in this model because they're the ones that were important to me. It is going to be supported by all of these different organizational units, which again, this is a cross-reference that comes through into the LPM art model that you saw earlier. What strategy elements does it support? This particular one, because it's to do with channels, supports some channels. Now, we may have 100 other things in the repository that have something to do with those channels, so it's useful to be able to just click on these and see everything from their point of view. So that's just looking a little bit at the strategy tooling. I said I would briefly show you, and it will be brief, I promise, what an organizational view looks like. So we've got a, funnily enough, demo organization map. I'll just zoom that in a little bit again so we can just see the top of it. So what this is showing is for the core organizational unit of the acquiring bank, which happens to have been colored in orange because that's the data that says if it's from that unit, from that location, sorry, that org unit, color it in this color. These are the various different org units that are solely going to be provided by the bank that is acquiring. In this particular scenario, which is the one we cover later in the case study, we're talking about a large bank acquiring a small specialized financial institution. These org units are going to be augmented by the target bank, but already existed in the acquiring bank. And then these last 6 at the bottom are net new org units from the bank that's being acquired. And then what we can do down here is they are cross maps. So this, the top part is called an organizational map. Bringing these things in turns it into an organizational cross map. So we can now see which capabilities support each of these organization units. And again, you can click off into one of these eyes on here and see what else does this support. This is, in this case, it's only organizational units, but there could be applications that sit underneath that. There could be skills that are required for it. It could appear in value streams, all sorts of things. Business capabilities, let's have a quick look at that. I mean, we shouldn't take too long on this. We have a catalog of capabilities here that have been loaded. It's extensive. There's 700 and odd in here, but you can get that. You don't need to spend a lot of time building that out. You can get this from reference models. You can get it from existing material. You can bring it all into here. What I wanted to show you is how easy it is to model that stuff. So if I just go down the bottom here into capability maps, we'll create a brand new one and call it demo. Slow internet, I apologize, because I'm talking on it as well. And then I will just roll back up here. We won't build the whole thing, just to be quick. But bear in mind, if you're trying to build this in Visio or in PowerPoint slides, by the time you've built the model, it's already out of date. So if I just want to see all of my core capabilities, I simply drag them onto the canvas, let it go, say how many levels deep we want to go, and the tool will now work out how all that should look and build it all out. And then voila, you have a business capability model which describes your entire core business. And you can immediately, when this is on here, this is all data now, you can heat map against this, you can connect this to other things. So very quick, very easy to get that sort of business on a page view. where shall we go next? I know, let's have a look at the arts themselves. So in order to support what we need to push through into the lean portfolio management side, I've created some initiatives in here, and they're of type Agile Release Train. They could be epics or initiatives or projects, they could be whatever. I happen to have created arts. So if we just have a look at one of those, and at the details, no, thank you, that was so quick to make it, we don't need to save it. What we're going to do is have a look at one of these arts. So this is the, which one are we in? We're in the channel art. Okay, so basic details of it up there. We don't need that. We can move that out of the way. And then here we can see all of the things that are related to the channel art. So it's supporting these 4 channels as we saw before. It delivers on the increased retail loans revenue strategy objective. That's what the SO means there. It requires these org units, again, mapping back to the scaled agile picture that we saw from the training material, and it supports these business capabilities. Now, one thing we haven't done yet with these arts is connected them to the value stream. So we should probably do that before we pass it across into the LPM tool, otherwise it won't do us any good whatsoever. So if I go to the value stream, I'll show you one here for consumer loan, which is the one we were talking about. So just quick overview of what a business architecture value stream looks like. It's more comprehensive than the simple chevrons across the page that you see in an operational value stream in Scaled Agile. And if I were to hide all of these other bits here, then you'll see basically the same thing that we were seeing. And then I'll bring them up and we'll talk about them. So what does it do? It's a demonstration value stream for consumer loan. Who's the triggering stakeholder? It's the loan applicant. And what's the value proposition? It's that the loan is repaid plus interest. You can drop as many of these things on here as you like. You can build new ones. You can build this thing entirely graphically as you go, or you can import this again from reference material. There's a whole bunch of value streams that are available from the Business Architecture Guild and from other sources. You can bring those in as a start point. And then if I want to just look in some of the other areas, so items, that's saying what are the value items that are produced by an individual stage. So a track customer results in you get a customer profile, even if you don't end up having a loan for them, you've still got the profile now. Completing the loan application, yeah, fairly obviously the value item coming out of that is the loan application, etc., etc. And then if we look at the entrance and exit, this is all about the flow. This is saying what do you need to have done in order to come into this stage, and what's the result of coming out of that stage. And oftentimes the exit from one will be the entrance to the next, but not always. So for example, providing the quick rate, the exit criteria is the quick rate quote has been provided, but the entrance to completing the loan application is that a loan application has been requested based on that rate, and so on and so forth. So they go just off across the page there. You can then see the stakeholders who are involved in each of these stages. Pretty useful to be able to see where these folks play a role. I could also map onto here the organization units. I could bring onto here things like the what was it that we had up here? We had the where the different development teams are and various other things. So in here we've got the Atlanta development, Atlanta legal, marketing, etc. You can drop those on here. You can say how many of those resources are required at this stage of this value stream. That's all directly relevant to the Scaled Agile picture as well. And then finally down here we've got the cross map, and this is where we can drop various other things that relate. So if I want to say I'm going to edit this now, so just click the little pencil, go into edit mode, zoom it in a bit so we can read it. I can say the channel art delivers the first stage, and I can say that the loan art is the second and the third, and so forth, so on and so forth. And you just build it up like that. And so that's how you map the individual arts to the stages of the operational value stream, which will then ultimately let you break it into multiple delivery value streams. Okay, we'll save that. And that is what I wanted to show you in this tool, because now we have built a full value stream mapped, at least in part, to the arts, and I'll do the rest of it while I'm handing back over to Jose to continue. And there he is. All yours, sir.
Thank you, Vernon. That was excellent. really gives us a perspective of how to go much deeper in terms of understanding our business architecture value stream as a starting point for lean portfolio management. So now you've defined your operational value stream. So now we are in a position to then define our development value stream. So what you're looking at is one plan. One plan is a top-down portfolio management solution that allows an organization to, define strategy to execution by, connecting elements that are coming bottom up with the strategy definition that has occurred top down by leadership and all the other stakeholders. So I'm showing you here kind of our starting screen. This is a lean portfolio management configuration within OnePlan. So you can see here that we have explicitly stated the hierarchy of portfolio value streams that we have talked a lot about here. And then epics and features, which can be defined top down or can be brought up from whatever team working tool your organization uses, where epics feature stories are defined. For purposes of this demonstration, we have we get down to the feature level. You don't have to. You can go down to any level you want. Really, we recommend feature, and we also have projects here in the event that there are still some waterfall efforts that need to be actually aggregated together with our agile planning. So in the context of our demonstration of consumer-backed loans, I just want to show that the value stream is shown here, and two epics that are going to be delivered are also shown within our hierarchy. And these have at all levels canvases where you can define exactly what you want from in this case we're talking about an epic, and you can see that the arts are listed here, so you can actually define them and also the increment in which you're going to be showing them. I also highlight that we do have your lean portfolio Kanban buckets showing here in order to reflect how we are progressing in our lean portfolio management. If we go back, you can actually, I'm going to go ahead and expand all this so you see how you can actually see the entire hierarchy, and I'll show the columns here that define some of the lean business case elements that you can define within the tool. At the canvas level, you can see that we can roll up stories, and if you're trying to look for status. But really the point of this is to show that we can actually reflect your entire lean portfolio structure. I also want to highlight that we do connect to your team planning tools. So you can see here that Azure DevOps in one case, Jira in another, Teams also, because the solution is very much tied to the Microsoft platform. And I want to also close by saying that really from a program planning, once you bring this down even further at the Agile release train level, again, we've deconstructed our development value stream even further. The idea is to understand which features by program increment are going to be delivered, and also, which are the arts that they belong to and teams that are leading the feature delivery. So from a program planning standpoint, you can, again, you saw how I started with portfolio and ended up with a program increment view. If we move towards our boards, we can go further here, and in terms of our program Kanban, we can then take those features and lay them out according to our buckets where they are, and we can actually also include our backlog. We don't have any lanes here, but I'll be doing that in a second in terms if you wanted to actually break these down into arts or teams, you can do that. And this is an active board, which means that I can bring it in if I wanted to. We do have also the ability to have WIP limits by these, or constraints that you see here. And if we actually wanted to see, what is it that we're working on through our backlog, you can. You see that we have summaries by epic budget. So we can see exactly, the level of investment that is being driven. I'm going to move to another from a lean portfolio Kanban standpoint. We're talking about epics. So at the highest level, we're looking at our epics, and you can see here that here we are looking at our value streams, and we can collapse these. You can see that we have a count in terms of what's being worked on, and every one of our buckets and funnel we have 3. We're only reviewing 1. I'll also highlight that we can define dependencies in terms of our epics. Our cards can actually show data points that you get to define. We can see that the widget values here have been calculated. And by the way, if I wanted to look at any of the metadata for that for the card, I can actually do that also. You can see here that I have dependencies, going across different epics in the lean portfolio Kanban. And just I'm going to go ahead and open this further so we can see the entire set of value streams. So our consumer backload value stream that we defined earlier is also listed here. I'm going to move now to, if we wanted to actually tie it all the way up. So I started the presentation with strategic themes. We can actually also do that. So make sure I don't have any connectivity issues here. Pardon the delay. So here we're looking at the strategic themes. Very succinctly, we've stated them as goals, and we show that we have grow the business, customer excellence, and increase productivity. We can see the level of investment that we have into each with the limits that we've defined, or the budget that we've defined. And you can see that we are under in grow the business. We're just about the amount that had originally been allocated to customer excellence, and we are slightly over in increased productivity. So right now, it's not too much of an issue. The dependencies between these epics is also shown. And you can see that we have also backlog of additional epics that are waiting to get into the funnel in order to be evaluated. So from a strategy standpoint, we can also, go up and see where we are from a lean portfolio management standpoint. And finally, I want to show our PI planning. So this is really where we organize the entire our agile release trains in order to deliver a value through our epics and features. So we are showing here our PIs, our program increments, and by defined dates. We do have some WIP limits that we've defined also for each one of the increments. And you can see that if we wanted to, we can actually then, in a program planning approach, bring all of new backlog items that have been defined and are still in a proposed state. If I wanted to, I could get into and look at any of the specific data for any of our features and how they have evolved. And typically this is where we bring in all of this from your team planning tool. So through our OneConnect platform, all of these data points would be synchronized. And like I said, this is an active board. So if we needed to, bring something and add it to a particular team, we could. Here we are looking at teams, but if we wanted to, we could change it and look at arts or any other lane. And just to see, how much work are we talking about between all of us? It looks like, a doable program board at this point. Anyway, even though we're in our first PI, we were way over. In our third PI, we are way over. So we have to figure out how we move some of these features around or break them further. So I want to move now to our roadmaps. We talked about value streams, and you can see that our value streams are represented with what we're going to be delivering through quarters. You could also define, you can see here that we can define major milestones that are occurring within each, and there are dependencies that are also showing if we needed to load this further. We have epics here, but we could be showing features if we wanted to, and you can see here that we can print this in order to share it with other stakeholders. There is a reporting pack that is actually available, and I'm going to switch to that real quickly. It it leverages Power BI. And all of these can be adjusted to show exactly your approach to agile planning and lean portfolio management. But you can see here that we can summarize strategic theme cost. We can look at strategy and how we are executing against every one of our epics, and have summaries of lean metrics, again, based on those strategic themes and their investment level and all of the epics that are being considered within our lean portfolio. So that is a very quick overview of one plan, and now we're going to go back and complete our presentation. Just 1 second here. So I would like now Chris Jackson from Fios Insight to come and give us a overview of the benefits from business architecture and lean portfolio management.
All right, thanks, Jose, and thanks, Vernon, for the demos and the shows. I want to get a little bit into the benefits, but before I talk about the benefits, one thing to call out is that it's very easy to get caught up into all of this and to start doing agile and forget to be agile. And what I mean by that is, I think it was Jose that said earlier, all of these items already exist within Scaled Agile Framework, right? If you took all of those things and you ran into the top floor of your headquarters and shuttered the doors and began populating the templates, you have not done the alignment and the transparency and the built-in quality that are, core values of the Agile framework. And it's really important to keep those in mind in the way that you do these things, so you remember to be agile. The same thing can happen with business architecture. You could go off documenting a lot of capabilities and business architecture artifacts and do a lot of really fun analysis, but forget to be agile in the way that you do it and not gain alignment from the rest of the organization or build in quality. And really being agile in the way you bring these together is where the benefits flow from. So, for example, in creating your lean portfolio management and setting it up, right? Vernon showed the business outcome-driven enterprise architecture. That model creates a flow from strategy into lean portfolio management if you follow it, right? And so using that is a way of building in quality to your lean portfolio management. It gives you that path and that roadmap of following changes in strategy through to the portfolio of action that needs to happen and be aligned inside of your lean portfolio management. So using those tools and best practices helps you to accelerate getting there, but also it makes it repetitive so that you have that known path that you can follow and go through each time you have a shift in strategy or a shift in market, a shift in situation. Another large benefit is, that using business architecture crystallizes that value proposition, because you have a lot of rich artifact and rich background and rich support to what you're calling a value proposition. And it becomes less of a sales pitch and more of a really well thought out justification. The other thing that business architecture brings to your lean portfolio management with respect to value is a very clear and well thought out economic framework that really helps your portfolio managers to evaluate the trade-offs between different types of value and be able to prioritize that backlog with more rationale than just a thumb in the air or measuring the prevailing winds. And then the final aspect of, making sure you're true to your being agile and to the core values. It's really easy to go off and do these strategy and lean portfolio management and completely forget to have the core values of alignment and transparency represented. We didn't go into it very much, but one of the main things you do in these tools is to crowdsource some of your inputs. So when Vernon was heat mapping the capabilities by maturity level, that could have been a strategist in the ivory tower making a decision on what the values were there. But the tool also allows you to create a survey, send it out to a broad set of stakeholders. By the way, it also tells you what stakeholders are related to each of those capabilities, and then get those back so that your network in the organization is able to drive that categorization of strength versus weakness as it comes to business capabilities. You can do the same thing when it comes to investment horizons. It's really easy for someone who's maintaining a system to believe it always has to be in the building and in the enhancing value part of the investment horizon, when in reality, most of the organization would think that it's time to retire that system. But having the crowdsourcing gives you a lot of strength and collaboration to come to a clear understanding. And then also the traceability to go back to why that has been characterized that way. And then finally, I think you saw some in what Jose was laying out. The ultimate goal here is that when a developer or a tester or someone picks up a user story, that they don't just understand what that user story is saying, but they understand the context and the strategy, and you can trace back to the strategy that drove the creation of that story, so that they are developing and testing with more of the context in mind as much as the words that are involved in the story, and that brings a lot more alignment and transparency and clarity into execution. So the benefits really flow not only from doing these disciplines, but making sure that you really are agile in the way that you do them. So let's look at a case study. Vernon showed you some of the examples, and it comes from one of our case studies at Fios, and that is a top 10 U.S. bank acquiring some smaller financial institutions. A total of around 30,000 employees that are involved in multiple states. In this situation, as you saw in Vernon's example, business architecture models really allowed the organization to line up the two banks, the two organizations, and see the gaps, understand the capabilities that were related to those gaps, score, good fit versus bad fit, and very quickly get to a backlog of things that would have to happen in order to integrate the two banks, right? And once you've done that, once you've taken the time to build in quality to the way you've done it the first time, they then had that foundation for further streamlining of the flow of strategies, and that became a repetitive path, and then became the basis of recommendations by establishing a shared economic framework, right? Because you've mapped all of those capabilities, you've mapped the organizations, you understand where and how value is created in your organization, you have a very clear understanding of what language is used to represent value and trade-offs in value. So, what came out of it? That clarity, when you lay out the first plan, we thought maybe 21 different discrete work streams would be needed, and a lot of calendar time to get it done. But being able to identify the gaps, having the clarity to understand, that where the overlaps were, where the strengths and weaknesses were, that was reduced from 21 discrete work streams down to 5, and trim off 3 months of time, of calendar time from the overall plan. So, being agile in the way that you bring these tools together allows you to trim the waste out, which is really the ultimate goal of lean, is to remove that waste. And so in this case, they were able to remove that. And then, using a tool like these, it doesn't become a dead PowerPoint at the end of the exercise. It becomes part of a model that continues to live and be reused, so that now, business capability-based investment planning is the approach that is used within the organization. These models are continually revived and uploaded and updated. Multiple versions of potential futures are modeled and then chosen, and really becomes the basis for the decision-making going forward for the entire organization. And that's the way it played out here. So, I hope you've seen, with these tools, if you approach them by honestly being agile, these sorts of benefits could also be available within your organizations as well. Jose?
Thank you, Chris. That's excellent. Very good case study on the benefits of business architecture and lean portfolio management. So with that, I'd like to summarize and close today's webinar. So as you've seen from everything we have shown, it makes a lot of sense to start your lean portfolio management with a business architecture foundation. Some of these elements might already exist within your organization. They might already have been defined, but not necessarily put together, coalesced, integrated into what we call business architecture. So this is an opportunity for you to crystallize and make clear to the rest of the organization, how the organization delivers value, how the organization defines its strategy. Your lean portfolio management journey is going to be easier if you focus on these business architecture core components. We have been today highlighted the importance of strategy and value streams. There are other components that you saw that are part of business architecture, which again will make the implementation of lean portfolio management easier. And we showed Fios Insight and One Plan as solutions that can help bring together and operationalize and communicate, define the domains of business architecture and lean portfolio management from one to the other. They're connected, and they can accelerate delivery for the organization to get the value from implementing these disciplines. So encourage you to consider these solutions as part of your evolution into business agility. Just in closing, thank you for participating in the webinar. This has been brought to you by Wickersoft. We are a joint venture with Microsoft, have been since 2002. We're a global organization with participation and teams pretty much everywhere around the world. In the specific discipline of portfolio management, we have a large set of resources, larger than any other Microsoft partner in the ecosystem. You can see below all of our competencies. We are the current project and portfolio management global award winner, and are very proud of the value we deliver to customers in portfolio management. Together with that, we are end-to-end in terms of what we provide organizations. Our advisory solutions and operations encompass everything that we can provide your organization, and we can be that dedicated partner. And want to thank Fios Insight for participating here also. They are the leading solution for business architecture and portfolio rationalization, which can bring to bear the business architecture discipline. Our solutions are available for trial in AppSource, so feel free to register and try them out, please reach out to us for additional support. We do have a lean portfolio management configuration for one plan that reflects the structure directly as a framework guides us. So if you need any support in getting that trial going, please feel free to give us make contact. In terms of next steps, we encourage you to contact us for a business architecture readiness check. We'll involve our partner Fios Insight in order to make that happen and see how close you are to having that foundation in business architecture. And likewise, then the next step in lean portfolio management, there's a readiness check that we offer where you can actually also see where you are, how close you are to actually starting the lean portfolio management journey. And in terms of the tools that you saw today, they both are offered on trial. As I said before, one plan is within AppSource, but also Fios Insight has their own trial that you can look within their site. Thank you very much for joining us today. Please look to our webinar within our site for upcoming topics. Next week, we'll be dealing with the business case for lean portfolio management. So that's a very interesting one, looking at lean portfolio management from a purely change management initiative and the business case for persuading leadership to actually go in the direction of lean portfolio management. That will be next week. We look forward to seeing you then and in other webinars that we'll be scheduling upcoming dates. Again, thank you very much and look forward to hearing from you on business architecture and lean portfolio management.